Hello, my name is Michael Hargett, a graduate STEM communication designer here at the Colorado School of Mines. And today, I wanted to highlight some of the errors and the red flags I've seen in some academic presentations and some steps on how to avoid them in your own presentations. Let's start with some common errors found in the slideshows themselves. Our slides allow listeners to better engage and follow along with the presentation. So the last thing that we want on our slides are distractions, like overcomplicated visuals. It's important to keep images and graphs simple, legible, and relevant. If you include a graph or a table that has many different trend lines and series, and only one of them is relevant to your presentation, it's best to replot the data yourself and format it neatly. Visuals that you don't mention during your presentation at all are probably unnecessary and should be removed altogether. It is important to be mindful of blank white space, however. Slides shouldn't have too much of this extra space. At the same time, they shouldn't be cluttered or overwhelming to read. Using animations can be a great way to layer in ideas and visuals without making the slide too busy and cluttered. Be sure to use animations sparingly, however, as overusing them can be unprofessional and distracting to your presentation. Next, the organization of the slides should be consistent. This means formatting all the text in the same way, with the same font, colors, and style. When using colors, do so sparingly and use only a few specific colors. It can be helpful to match your colors to the color palette of the institution, and this is a great way to make sure all of your color choices are appropriate and not distracting. When adding text, make sure your text isn't too brief, like single words, or too lengthy, like full paragraphs. You should include text to guide the audience along and help people follow what you're saying out loud. But most of the content you're conveying should be done so verbally. Let's look at some common verbal errors to avoid as well during your presentation. Perhaps the most common of these is the use of filler words like or These should be avoided as much as possible, as they make the speaker seem unprepared or unknowledgeable about their presentation. A helpful trick to avoid using these is when you need time to think, you can stop and take a drink to get a little bit of time. Now, most presentations will have a time requirement that needs to be met. Do your best to only use the allotted time, being careful to not go over or under the time requirement. This shows respect to the other presenters and demonstrates that you know your material well enough to navigate a time limit. A great way to avoid coming in under time is to include a few additional slides at the very end of your presentation that you can refer to in case you are coming in under time or have relevant questions. Refer to the handout for more information on how to compose these backup slides. Now, when speaking, your tone should be the same as if you were explaining the concept to a friend, not reading an official script. Present with your normal speaking voice, projecting loudly, clearly, and calmly. Be careful to avoid unnatural inflections and emphases that sometimes happen when one is nervous or over-rehearsed. Finally, be sure you understand everything that is on your slides. Never include a bullet point, a visual, an acronym, or anything else that you cannot fully explain if someone asks you a question about it specifically, either during the presentation or during questions at the end. For questions, if you're asked a general question that you still cannot answer, don't panic. Simply acknowledge that you aren't sure the answer at this moment and provide them with the steps you would take to get to that answer. By answering questions tactfully like this, even answers you do not know can help improve the credibility of your presentation.